Well, it's wonderful that the Innocence Project has picked up Darlie Routier's case. They've had it for about 4 years, and to this day, we still have Donnell reaching out to the public, saying they need any leads you got. They keep saying that the Innocent Project, which is, I believe it was started by Barry Schreck, the Innocent Project doesn't take cases that they don't believe in. I've heard that from a lot of supporters. They say that the Innocence Project won't take a case unless they know that person is innocent. But the fact of the matter is, the Innocence Project has lost 42% of their cases. They have gotten some people out. They stood behind this gentleman here with Centurion Ministries, Keith Coleman, and they swore up and down that he was innocent, and they pressed it, and they pressed it, and they pressed it. I believe it was 8 years after his conviction that they went back and did the DNA test. And the DNA proved that he was the killer. So the Innocence Project can get it wrong. It is interesting that they have picked up Darlie's case. Because they don't take cases unless they are sure that person is innocent. They took Darlie's case, and we're still getting supporters say, send them in leads, send them in leads. Yeah, but at the same time, they're telling us they're sure she's going to be out. They're sure. You wait till you see this. But we need you more leads. But wait till you see this. You guys aren't going to believe it. But we need you to send more stuff. They contradict themselves right away with that. But let's look into Keith Coleman's case. Let's take a look at it.
Coleman soldiers on.
He knew time was drawing near, and he was all full out in the mode to get his case out before the public.
Roger Keith Coleman was a master manipulator. He got, the press, the publication, all this painted the area as an ignorant backwoods people, and they didn't know much of anything. And they assumed that there's no way that they'd come out with a fair verdict, because here we have this individual on death row, and he's getting ready to be put to death. And you got these ignorant back here, ignorant people that wants a sacrificial lamb.
After 8 long years battling Coleman's execution, his lawyers decide to harness the newly available forensic science, DNA testing. They discover that of the 2 semen samples, one belongs to Wanda's husband, which means the second sample must belong to Wanda's killer.
DNA science wasn't as advanced back then as it is today. It couldn't identify a particular person, but it could possibly rule Coleman out. So of course running it makes sense, but it does not rule him out. So as far as the state of Virginia is concerned, the jury's verdict stands. Coleman is guilty, and his time is running out.
10 years after his conviction, a date is finally set to execute Roger Coleman. His defenders around the world go into overdrive, whipping up public support against what they claim is a terrible miscarriage of justice.
It takes a long time to execute a death row prisoner because of the appeals. The reality is, the review that they get on those appeals is perfunctory. And not only perfunctory, but can be aggressively pitched against them. There are very few courts that are actively looking at these cases to say, is this correct?
This case attracted more attention than I've experienced in my 37-year career of practicing law. The Pope got involved in the case. Mother Teresa got involved in this case. Accounts were published in Time and Newsweek and creating doubt and suspicion on the conviction.
Coleman maintained his innocence across the board to everyone he spoke to.
I'm innocent, I didn't commit this crime, and I'm not going to let them murder me without putting up a fight to prove my innocence.
In a last-ditch attempt to save Coleman's skin, his defense team persuaded the governor of Virginia to allow him to take a polygraph just 24 hours before he's set to die.
They call them lie detectors, but that's not what they do. They measure stress on the discredited theory that there's some link between stress and lying. Being a day away from execution, that's stressful too.
Have you ever get sick with Wanda McCoy? Regarding the death of Wanda McCoy, did you yourself inflict any of those fatal wounds? No.
It's 24 hours before Roger Coleman's date with the electric chair, and a family friend anxiously awaits the result of
Was there a polygraph?
Yes, there was.
Yes.
And
Well,
she
you
knew
failed
it, and she failed.
No,
She did not fail it. I know what you said. I know what she said when she failed it. She failed it.
She did not.
I have one more question.
You know what?
My question is,
When was her throat cut? Good. The question is, when was her throat slashed?
which could help prove his innocence.
I had been selected by the Virginia Press Association to witness the execution. Virginia law requires journalists to be. Time grew near, and the media frenzy intensified around the nation, around the world. I kept thinking, I'm going to watch a man die in the electric chair. And I thought, can I do this? Am I going to be able to do this? On the way up to the execution, I prayed, God, if there's a sign that Roger Coleman is indeed guilty, please let me see that sign. And the newscast comes on the radio, and the governor had issued an order to give him a lie detector test, and then the announcer said, and he failed. Well, I took that as a sign. It was a sign that I needed.
The polygraph test result only adds additional confirmation that Roger Coleman is the one who killed Wanda McCoy. It's another brick in the wall.
With just minutes remaining till the execution, news crews and death penalty protesters jostle outside the prison.
An innocent man is going to be murdered tonight. I hope Americans will realize the injustices of the death penalty.
Kathy Still has a ringside seat.
They try to prepare you for what you're going to see. I can tell you, it does not prepare you in the least bit. The team comes in. Roger walked directly to the chair. The team quickly strapped him in, and they were very somber. I felt very, very warm, not in a good way. And I think the other people in the room, they felt the same way. Nobody said a word. And then just in a matter of seconds, you hear a buzz. A humming noise. There's a jolt in the chair. He's strapped in, so very little moves, but the hands. It seemed like so much longer than it actually was. You have to wait before this person is pronounced dead. I thought, I've just watched someone die. I've watched someone be executed. I also thought of Wanda and Brad and her family and the town of Grundy and what everyone had been through because of an act that Roger Coleman did.
Coleman may be dead, but the fight to clear his name lives on. Fast forward 14 years, and DNA science has advanced to the point where it could finally answer the question, did Roger Coleman do it?
In 2006, our governor at the time struck an agreement to have the semen samples that were retained for all those years independently analyzed to see whether or not Coleman's DNA matched the DNA in the semen sample.
I was a bureau reporter. I had my own office in another area. So I'm sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for the email to come in. I have a lot of time to think, and a lot of things are going through my head. Did I watch an innocent man die? To know that I saw someone innocent be put to death by the state would have been something I'm not sure I could have handled.
Coleman's lawyers have spent 20 years fighting to prove that Roger Coleman is innocent. Paul and Zena and Jim McCloskey are a phone call away from finding out the truth.
Well, I was representing Centurion in their efforts to get the testing. It was a very strange atmosphere before the news came through. The phone rang, and Jim picked it up, and it was the lab calling.
Jim McCloskey. Yes, sir.
And I'll never forget what he said.
I'm sorry, say that again? He is the source.
It's a match.
1 in 19 million.
So we knew right away that it had come back and matched Coleman.
All right, fine.
He was guilty.
He's guilty.
By that point, Jim has been working on the case for almost 20 years. I think he had to be terribly disappointed.
Man, boy.
Not only because the results came back the way they did, but because he had been misled by someone who he came to care about. You know, I think that had to be very hard for him.
I always believed that Roger was completely innocent. I now know that I was wrong.
I felt very disappointed.
I felt vindicated, but not just myself. I felt our community was vindicated because the media had done such a hatchet job on the prosecution in the case. I never expected that the DNA test results would indicate anything other than Mr. Coleman.
I think in the end, justice was done, and I was extremely relieved that the DNA test was conclusive.
Roger Coleman pulled the wool over the eyes of a lot of very smart people, from really clever lawyers to journalists around the world. This guy was a sociopath, a master manipulator. Coleman deserved to be punished.